Good afternoon and happy Friday, everyone. My name is Caroline Player, and on behalf of the Georgia Tech Alumni Association, I welcome you to this segment of our Career Conversations webinars on discussing career fit today. Before I hand the program over, I just wanted to mention to you all that I would certainly appreciate if you check your settings right now and just make sure that you're on mute. That'll help a great deal with any background noise if we all keep ourselves on mute during the course of this conversation. What I would ask you, though, is to contribute via that chat function. You'll see the chat bubble. Pull down that window, and you can message Hallie or myself during the course of this, and we can anonymously address questions and comments that you have that way. So we'd appreciate your interactivity, but through the chat function. Let me tell you a little bit about our speaker. Hallie Crawford is a certified career coach, speaker, and author from Atlanta whose coaching company, HallieCrawford.com, helps people identify their ideal career path, navigate their career transition, and nurture their careers. Her team of coaches works with people of all ages. They have clients worldwide, and they've helped thousands of people achieve their career goals. Hallie's passionate about helping others because she took the same journey to find her own satisfying career and purpose in life. She knows firsthand the challenges that arise during career transition and has practical solutions to make the process successful. She's been coaching since 2002 and has an undergrad and grad degrees from Vanderbilt and the University of Illinois at Chicago. She has served on the board of the Georgia Coach Association and is regularly featured as a career expert in the media, including with CNN, Fox Business News, the Wall Street Journal, and the U.S. News and World Report. When she's not helping clients one-on-one, Hallie coaches small groups through virtual teleclasses and regularly holds speaking engagements and career workshops. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia with her son, Vaughn. When she's not working, she loves horseback riding, traveling, and living by the motto, which I bet you'll hear during the course of this presentation: the greatest risk in life is not taking one. So let me turn this presentation over to Hallie, and welcome again, you all.
Thanks, Caroline, and thanks everyone for being here. So appreciate it, especially on your lunch hour on Friday. So we are here to talk about how do you know if you're in the right fit, in the right career fit specifically. And I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with when they come to us for coaching. And I don't know, Caroline, if this happens for you too, when people come to work with you at the Alumni Association, like they might be unhappy or unsatisfied, but so many times people are like, well, but maybe this is as good as it gets, and I need to just, suck it up and deal with it. Or they might feel like, gosh, there's so many things I do like about it, but then there's other things that I don't like and they're driving me nuts.
Right.
So it's hard for us to know, I think, that we're in the right fit. Does that sound like resonates with you?
It does. It does, Hallie. I do think some people think that concept that this is just work and this is how things are, it sometimes does hit folks to the core. And Hallie, I just wanted to mention too, I think we have a little bit of trouble hearing you just in terms of volume. So if you might be closer to your mic.
Oh, cool. How does that sound? Is that better?
Oh, sounds very good.
Okay, good. I'll sit still right here. Perfect. So everyone, please know that regardless of the situation you're in, whether you're very unsatisfied, uncertain, and just kind of confused about whether you're in the right fit, that's why we're here today. So we will help you figure it out. So really quickly, I want you to know I understand when I was 25, I was living in my mother's basement, and not only living in it, but emotionally in it. I was jumping around from job to job and very unhappy with all of them. I basically had about 5 different jobs before I was 26. And I was unsure what I wanted to do for my next job, much less what would be rewarding for me long term. And I felt like, this is me on the far left, the only thing I had going for me at that time was this cute Halle Berry haircut. That's what it seemed like. And I have to tell you, too, that I can specifically relate to not being sure, though, about being in the right fit. I was in this really cool job at A&E Television. It was actually here in Atlanta. And it was a cool company, right? A great boss. I had great benefits. And the salary for an entry-level position for someone my age was awesome. And my friends were jealous. My parents were like, you are so lucky. And so for me, and I bet some of you all can relate to this, For me, even though it was supposed to be a great fit, it didn't feel like that to me. But I wasn't sure, because I wasn't sure, like, is this what work is supposed to feel like? We all have to deal with office politics and things we don't like at work. So how did I know, what the right fit was? So I just want you to know I truly understand. And after a year of working there at A&E Television and becoming increasingly more unhappy, I got my answer. I took a workshop from a career coach. It was called Writing Your Personal Mission Statement. And I discovered that, this was not the career for me. Over time, I determined I wanted to be a career coach, launched my business, and learned how it felt to be in the right fit. And so I want you all to take a look at this slide right here and want you to know these are some clues as to how you should feel if you're in the right fit. And Caroline, feel free to share if you've got some more. But one thing I found out, and through working with our clients as well, that I could feel engaged in my work, connected to what I was doing on a consistent basis, in the flow even, and using my natural talents and abilities and feeling really fulfilled almost every single day. So this is what's possible for you all. And if you don't feel any of these things, then that's a possible red flag for you. So I wanted to share these with you first because I wanted you to know these are, this is one of the ways, kind of a litmus test for you. Caroline, does that make sense?
It certainly does, Hallie, yes.
Good. So these are some of the ways, everyone, that you should feel about your work. And if any of them are missing in any way, shape, or form, you want to be thinking about, okay, am I in the right fit? So I want to frame this out. So take a look at this next slide for me. This is also, everyone, not about being Pollyanna. We all hear this, and Caroline, I know you've heard this before too. Do what you love and the money will follow. Well, yes, to a certain extent it follows, right? Because you don't feel like you're working or not working as hard because you're in the flow. But I got to tell you guys, it's not exactly that. I have worked very hard. So it's a yes and no answer here. In some cases, or in some, one way to define it or think about it, yeah, the money does follow because you're doing something you love and you really enjoy it. It doesn't feel like work. But the no part of it is that it's hard work. So it's been very hard work for me to start my business, keep it thriving, but I love it. And so it doesn't bother me as much, okay? So here's the deal, everyone. Look at this second bullet point here. What we're going for in terms of knowing the right fit for you is not that it's Pollyanna, like, I'm jumping for joy every single day, because, yeah, there are going to be bad days that we have and things that are frustrating to us that we're going to have to deal with. There are for my job. But what we're going for is the good so far outweighs the bad that you barely notice those difficult things. And that's how it is for me. Caroline, does that make sense? Any thoughts on that?
It does, and I would even say, the relationship of money following, if you are doing what you love, I'd even say sometimes you have to, if you're doing what you love, you have to make decisions about the monetary reward. And, maybe something that you truly love to do and want to do, it is not as monetarily satisfying as something that might be very lucrative, but you don't enjoy. And sometimes you have to make decisions about that, and they may be difficult ones on how to streamline your life, for example, to afford you the opportunity to do the things that you may love, that you can truly live with the monetary amount, but can also enjoy every day when you go to work.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to talk about that. So that's a great point, because when we look at the career model later, it helps people identify, what the right fit is and what the new direction would be if that's where they're at and they need to make a change. Compensation is one of the things, but we have to weigh that against everything else on the model. So that's a great intro for that. That's perfect.
Absolutely. And we have someone here making a comment that work-life balance may be actually the goal for someone. So you're absolutely right. And you do have to, make certain considerations when you're trying to even out that balance.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that in the chat. That's awesome. It is. And I think that can change, our goal for our career. It definitely can change over time, depending on our age, our life situation, what's going on for us at any given time. So that's absolutely true. And the key is, everyone, is for you to be at choice and know what those things are that you want, at any given time. To me, that's the bottom line. Instead of feeling like sucked into something that you really don't want or stuck in something that you're no longer happy in. So that's perfect. Thanks for bringing that up. So here's our agenda for today. We've got some good stuff to share with you. So obviously we're going to talk about why is career fit important. That's our first thing, okay? We're going to talk about 8 red flags for if you're in the wrong fit. It's a little bit of a quick quiz for you all to take and think about. Number 3, we're going to define and talk about how to define fulfillment for you. Is it present in your current career? And if it's not, what can you do about it? And then finally, like I said just a second ago, we'll talk about the ideal career model, because my goal for you all today is to know once and for all, am I in the right fit or not, A, and B, if I'm not and determine that it's time to make a move, how do I figure out what that next step is? And that's part of what the model can help you with, okay? So let's take a look at this slide. So why is career fit important? Too many of us or too many professionals are not in the right one. A 2013 Gallup poll showed that 70% are unsatisfied at work. Typically, and Caroline, I'm sure you can agree with me, when you see these, whenever I see these stats or surveys, they're always kind of depressing. And, you know, I feel like it does kind of go up and down, of course, of, you know, whether we're in a recession or just what the job market is like to a certain extent. But too often, so many of us are not in the right fit. And so I want you all to think about this for just a second and get out your pen and paper and make some notes here. And set a goal for yourself based on where you think you fall within these 3 categories that are on this slide, okay? So if you're satisfied and in the right fit, you know, what we suggest is you focus on career management. Kind of keep an eye on next steps in case you need to make a move later. Take a class every 6 months, evaluate where you are with your career every 6 months, et cetera, okay? The second one is probably most of you, and most likely why you're here. If you're only somewhat satisfied, or even the third one, very unsatisfied, the last 2 categories, one of the things that you need to start thinking about right away, and if you'll see that on the second bullet point here on the slide, is to start to separate what works for you and what doesn't, and write it down, like in black and white. This is a great exercise we have our clients do. What do I like about what I do now? And then in the next column, what do I dislike about it, okay? Because that will help you evaluate it and analyze it from a more objective place and say, okay, these are the things that are working. Look how many there are, for example. There might be 10 of them and only 3 that aren't working. And it helps you realize, okay, are these 3 things something I can, you know, do something about, right? So think about right now, everyone, which category you fall into. And basically set a time frame goal for yourself of, you know, when you need to know about making a change. And just to kind of give you some guidelines, when we're working with clients on career direction and career fit, usually it takes them about a month, month and a half, 2 months at the most to figure out, okay, I'm in the wrong fit, what do I need to do next? Or determine, okay, it is the right fit, but these are the things I need to change. And I give that timeline, and Caroline, tell me if this makes sense or you suggest something different. Just because sometimes we're in a passing phase at work, you know, and we're just frustrated by our boss or by a project we're working on. So I always like to suggest to people to give it a little bit of time to kind of feel it out, and that's why I say that couple-month time frame.
I absolutely think that's right, Hallie, because at certain times I think we all walk away from a situation and think, wow, that is super frustrating, and have, you know, an inclination to say, I don't want to do that anymore. And where it can be a very temporary situation, a particular project that you're involved in that will weather through, but once you start to make yourself accountable to these things that you are, what is working, what is not working, you can see a visual representation of how many things are or are not working. Like you said, just an objective picture rather than an emotional response to a particularly bad day or week, right?
Yep, it's a good first step, everybody. That's exactly right. So good first exercise, make that quick list and do a comparison, okay? All right. So here's also why it's important, the impact of the wrong career fit. It's a pretty big deal. This was a quote from a book called Well-Being, the 5 Essential Elements from Gallup Press. They do a lot of surveys, Gallup poll, as you guys probably know. But worker discontentment, it takes a huge toll on quality of life inside and outside the workplace. We know this. But what was interesting, too, is the second bullet point here is that unhappy employees, and I think this is not surprising for us, in that same study, didn't only dread the workday, but they were also twice as likely to be diagnosed with depression. And what happens to us is when we're not in the right fit for whatever reason, there's low productivity, low self-esteem, low sense of fulfillment, plus just, not happy at work or personally. So we really do need to make sure on a consistent basis that we're in the right fit. And I would say reevaluate it and check in with yourself every 6 months to annually, because as the person mentioned, in the chat box earlier, sometimes our goal is life balance, and maybe that shifted for you from, in your 20s when your goal was to, climb the corporate ladder. And so it is good to check in with this on a regular, consistent basis, everyone, because sometimes your priorities might shift. And not that you wouldn't know that they have, but sometimes we just operate on autopilot, right? Because our lives are busy and our kids are busy, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really good to be very proactive about this and check in with yourself, at least annually about, okay, how is my career feeling and do I need to do anything about it? Does that make sense, Caroline?
It totally does. Yes, we would all take responsibility for, for some reason I think maybe people think of this less regarding their careers. But yes, checking in and taking responsibility on whether this is a good fit, whether your current job is a good fit, organization, et cetera, is so important. And just like you said, doing that regularly just to make sure you aren't letting things just go by you without realizing.
Perfect. Good. All right, so let's take a look at this slide just quickly. The good news is, everybody, that you can find the right fit, okay? 98% of the people we work with, they find the right fit probably within 2 years of the time that they have started working with us. A lot of times it's shorter, but it is possible. And I wanted to tell you the second bullet point, everybody, too, that a lot of times when our clients come to us, they're so unhappy that they feel like, oh my goodness, I have to go be a circus clown, or something so dramatic in terms of a change. But I've got to tell you all that 9 times out of 10, or at least let's say it's 70% of the time, there are people that do make a dramatic change, but about 70% of the time, it's less dramatic of a change than they thought they needed to make. It's just because they were so unhappy, which is why doing the black and white list of what works and what doesn't is so helpful. It can take that emotion out of it, okay? So how do you know? Right, so we talked about this on the slide previously, so I'll keep this one really short. You know that you're in the right fit if you feel engaged, if you feel connected, if you feel fulfilled. And I also added this one at the bottom, everybody, if you feel useful, because studies have shown actually that you will not feel fulfilled in your job if you are not making use of your natural talents and abilities on a regular basis. You could get paid so much money, you know what I mean, you have all these other things in place, but if you're not using those natural talents and abilities, there's something inside of us that we just don't feel like we're being as useful as we possibly could. Does that sound right to you, Caroline?
It does, absolutely. That feeling of usefulness and that you're contributing and, like you said, using those skills that are innate, that's so important.
Yep, totally. Okay, so let's take a look at this slide. I really like this TED Talk. I just love them. The link, everybody, is here at the bottom if you want to look it up afterwards. And by the way, you'll get the recording, as Caroline said, and also a PDF of slides, too. So you can take a look at the links. But this was interesting as well. Some other clues for whether you're in the right fit and things you want to be looking for are these. Are the fruits of your labor, seeing that, is that present for you? Because I really do. I think people want to see the fruits of their labor in some way, shape, or form. By the way, some people want to see more tangible results from their work than others. Other people aren't as concerned with that tangible result necessarily, okay? But in some way, shape, or form, we do want to see that impact. We want to feel, if you look at the second bullet point, we want to feel appreciated for our work, and we want to be paid what we think we should be paid for it. Sure, compensation may not be as high on our list at that time in our life, let's say, and that's totally cool, but we at least want to feel like we're being compensated adequately or in a way that feels right for us, okay? And then if you look at this third one, I like this one too. We want to feel like we're challenged, in order to feel proud of the work we do. I feel like everybody can relate to that one. And then also, pretty much everybody we've worked with, and maybe there's, you know, a few that don't see it in a direct correlation this way, but most of us want to help others in some way through our work, even if it's through helping a business thrive and grow, but therefore providing a good service to their customers or whatever it is. That's still helping others in some way. And I really do believe that even if you don't do, you know, like career coaching or counseling where you're directly working with people one-on-one in some way, you still, the work that you do is impacting other people, whether it's your employees that you work with and the environment and culture you co-create with them, to the service you provide or the product your company, you know, develops. So these are good clues to things that you want to have in the right fit as well. Does that make sense, Caroline?
It does. And just to throw in a little example of something that I thought, as soon as I saw your first bulleted point, Hallie, you know, lots of times I'll work with our alums and making career transitions. And one of the fields that, you know, is fairly popular, at least as people leave Georgia Tech as graduates, is consulting. And one of the things that I feel that is missing in some cases when they're transitioning away from consulting is, you know, they're doing very difficult projects, but they aren't able to necessarily see the end result of the recommendations that they're making to these companies. And that can be a really missing part of the work that they, you know, the professional satisfaction that they're missing. So that's just an example of one of those things where fruits of labor are very important, and seeing projects through to fruition can be very rewarding.
Yeah, I agree. And then also, like you were saying, like they're taking your suggestions or advice, you know.
Right,
I mean,
right.
It can be really frustrating to feel like you're making recommendations to change processes or whatever, and make improvements to your organization, but they fall on deaf ears. I mean, goodness,
right.
That's really frustrating. You can't last
right.
very long doing that. So, good points. All right, so let's take a look at the red flags. I don't know, when I was picking out my images, everybody, I have to tell you, I was like, this red flag in this setting is kind of too nice for like a warning sign, but here we go. So on the first slide, let me show you this real quick. So this will be the second item on our agenda, 8 flags for the wrong fit. So here are 4 of them. So everyone, get out your pen and paper again, please, and start to check off this list. Which ones apply to you? Dreading getting out of bed, not just some mornings or the Monday morning blues, but pretty much every morning. If work relationships and performance suffering, it's another possible red flag. If getting no joy or satisfaction from it, we talked about that a moment ago with fruits of your labor. And if you just don't, you know, you're really slacking off and just have a little or no motivation to do the work. So check these off for me. And then I'll give you the answers to the quiz in just a second. All right, so check these out, the next 4. And actually, this number 5 here, I wanted to point this one out. This is a big deal. We did a career conversation, gosh, Caroline, I can't remember when it was, about authenticity.
Last spring.
Yeah, in the spring. And so this is a biggie, everybody. Like, it's not that you have to be exactly your personal self at work. In a lot of cases, in ways, that's not appropriate. We all have a professional persona, and it's there for a reason, and that's fine. But if you feel like you are like someone else completely at work, and you can't be true to yourself or authentic or true to your values, and at least be like who you are in some ways at your job, that's going to be a big problem. It's going to grate on you over time. Okay, so this number 5 is a big one. Number 6, we talked about already a few minutes ago, your job doesn't make use of your talents. Number 7 and 8, if you spend most of your time complaining about your job, big red flag there. And number 8, if you regularly fantasize about quitting, being fired or let go. I have to tell you this story, and then Caroline, if you have any to share, feel free.
Sure.
But I had a client who called me, it was about a year ago, and she sounded really good. We talked for a few minutes. She sounded great, like light and, you know, easy breezy, all that. And a couple minutes into the call, I was like, okay, so what's your check-in? What's happened since we last talked? And she said, oh, I got fired. And it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. And it was just one of those things where it caught me off guard, but at the same time, I totally understood because all of those calls leading up to that one, she was just miserable. And it was hard for her to just up and quit. Like, I know that that is tough for people to do, and sometimes it's not the smartest thing, obviously, unless you have something else lined up. But if you're fantasizing about that all the time and you feel like, oh, that might be the best thing that ever happened to me, you're probably in the wrong fit. Any thoughts there, Caroline? Do those make sense?
It certainly does, and I've certainly had conversations with folks who have, whether it be laid off, and the company was at a point that you could see sort of the business declining, so that resulted in some morale issues, and maybe the usefulness that you'd felt previously with that employer didn't exist, and then just a sense of relief when you sort of didn't have to act like everything was okay any longer, right? And so certainly that a sense of relief that people can go and pursue something that is going to be a better match for them ultimately, while maybe not the most welcome circumstance, I've certainly had that same conversation.
Yeah. And you know what, it was good. It was so good for her because it opened up, she was just so much more excited and motivated. It opened up her energy and her time to actually look for the right thing. So often for us, and actually, guys, I'm going to switch to the next slide here so you can be taking a look at whether you need to make a move or not while we're talking. But it freed her up to make the next move. And there are several times, many times when I've worked with clients, and we can't get anywhere in those first like 1 or 2 calls because all we're doing is talking about their current job and how they can deal with it. Right. It makes the coaching really tough, and so sometimes they do. They have to just find a way out, or at least make a plan of I'm going to leave soon, so that it frees up their energy and their thinking. Okay. Yes. So take a look at this checklist, everybody. I like my little checklist guy here with the checklist tower. So if it was 1 or 2 red flags, okay, that's not as many. It may just be that you're going through a rough patch, and you may just want to reevaluate it in 1 month. Okay. 3 or 4 red flags, you're probably not in the right career, but you may be a little bit closer to your ideal than you think. So again, like we said, write down what works and what doesn't to get started. And then if you have more than 5 red flags, it's definitely time to make a change. So this can help you evaluate everyone, kind of where you fall in terms of the fit and what you need to do about it, okay? All right, so let's talk about number 3, defining fulfillment. And if we could all just be as zen as this guy in this place, right? That would be fantastic. So here's the deal. Why do I always talk about defining fulfillment on these webinars and with our clients? Here's the deal, everybody. Having a sense of fulfillment in some way, shape, or form is pretty critical because it impacts every part of your career. Like I said, if you're not using your natural talents and abilities, you're not going to feel fulfilled. If you're not getting paid the amount that you feel like you should be or deserve, and it's frustrating to you, you're not going to feel fulfilled, and vice versa, okay? The second reason why fulfillment is so critical in some way, shape, or form in your job is it's the hardest thing to identify, but it will sustain you throughout your career ups and downs. So, for example, even when I have those bad days, and I'm frustrated with my job, like it's so incredibly fulfilling for me. I know I'm in the right fit, and it sustains me through that. So it will help you through those ups and downs as well, okay? And when you define what's truly fulfilling for you work-wise, it will give you the greatest clarity about your career direction rather than, let's say, just looking at your talents and skills, past experience, or salary, okay? And we're going to talk in just a moment on the next slide about how to start to define what's fulfilling for you. Any thoughts, Caroline? Do clients come to you, or I should say alum come to you, and do they talk about just not being fulfilled in their career in addition to other frustrations?
Yes, I definitely think that fulfillment is an issue that some recognize and then seek assistance in help finding. Yes.
And it tends to be one of the harder ones. I don't know how you feel about it, but I usually tend to have to spend a little bit more time with people on it because it's a little more nebulous.
It is. It's hard to, so it's completely understandable if you all actually on the line today, you need to give some thought to what really does fulfill me, because it is hard to both pull that out and to package it up in a nice, clean statement, right?
Yeah, totally. It can be really hard. So we're going to give you some ideas about how to do it right now, okay? So let me get these to pull up on the slide. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, there we go. So here are some ways, everyone, to define what's fulfilling for you. 4 basic ways to kind of get you started here, okay? So number 1, define what success means to you. After you get off the call today, think about that today and over the weekend. What does success mean to me? Is it about financial reward or is it about these other things? A combination of multiple things, that's totally fine. You can also, number 2, identify your interests and think about, okay, what do I do outside of work or even inside of work where I lose track of time? Those are probably things that are fulfilling and meaningful to you, okay? A third thing you can do is kind of muse on your ideal day at work. What are the qualities that the ideal day would have, okay? In addition to the tasks you're performing. So is it working in a team, planning an event, data analysis? What is it that you lose track of time and what would be, present in your ideal day at work? And then another way is to identify your top 3 career values. And so this is one of the times for just a second, everybody, I'd like you to share in the chat box. Tell us what you think fulfillment means for you, how you might define it in your career, and then Caroline will share a couple so we can get some examples here. But one of the ways while you're thinking about that and sharing those, one of the ways we have and help our clients identify what's fulfilling to them is we have them tell us about a peak experience. Okay, you'll see that here on the slide. And it'll be anything like a time in their life when they took a trip. It can be something personal, it can be something professional. It doesn't really matter, but it just needs to be a peak moment or time in their life. Quick example for you, we had a client who had a trip to Italy as an experience. I mean, hello, that would be mine too, right? She loved it because she learned about other cultures. And for her, the values were education and helping people be more worldly and more culturally aware and sensitive. She also liked that trip because it was a challenge to get by in a different language. And she realized that, I want to have a job where I'm very consistently challenged all day, every day, like kind of at a high level, okay, a lot going on. And also the third thing was that she had to plan and budget for that trip. And she really liked working with numbers and realized that that's not just something that I'm good at. It actually gives me a sense of reward and fulfillment. So working with numbers was one of her career values as well. Okay, and so the question here to ask yourself at the bottom, everyone, of the slide is, does your current job bring you fulfillment in the way that you want it to, okay? Keeping in mind, everyone, that some people will tell us, hey, I'm okay with getting a little bit of fulfillment out of my job and the rest of it I get in my personal life with my family. Totally fine. It's all about what works for you and how you define it. So share with us what's fulfilling for you. Caroline, did we get any come in yet? If we didn't, we'll just keep going and we'll share them closer to the end.
We don't have any yet, but if after that explanation, you want to put that into the chat window, I'll make sure we address it. And so you kind of will be held accountable to those values, and we'll share for just the purposes of other people's ideas as well.
Yeah, perfect. So feel free to muse on this for a second, guys, and then I'll move us to the next slide. I know it's hard to come up with it just right out of the box sometimes. But think about, I think the easiest one in some ways for people is, how do I define success? It could be life balance. It could be I'm using this talent and skill, I'm getting paid the right amount, whatever it is. Go ahead and put that in the chat box. Okay, so when you take a look at the recording again later, or the PDF of the slides, everyone, take a look at this one specifically, because this will give you those specific steps to help you define it. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at number 4, getting close to our last step for the webinar. So number 4 is to review the ideal career model. So in order to understand and know if you're in the right fit, this is a great tool. I'll show you the model real quick on the next slide in just a second. And I want you to review that, because that will give you kind of another checklist to say, okay, are these things covered in my current job or not? The career model is helpful for 2 reasons. Number 1, it helps you be more objective and consider all the necessary components of the right fit. And number 2, what I suggest you do is, by reviewing each step one by one, piece by piece, it will help you kind of go through objectively, okay, I've got this, but I don't have that. Now, can I do something about that? Like, can I change my job description at all or volunteer for more projects? Get that in there, whatever it is. But again, it helps you be a little bit more objective, okay? So a couple notes about this. So here's the ideal career model. If you've been on these webinars, you've seen this before. This is one of the main tools we use with our clients, okay? These are all of the elements you need to consider in order to know if you're in the right fit. So use this as an evaluation tool. Go through them one by one. And here's the deal, everyone. Define what they mean for you, okay? How you define each piece, number one here on the slide, is critical. And number two, which ones are the highest priority for you? Realizing that some may be more important to you than others. So for example, salary may be more important now than earlier in your career, or vice versa, okay? And salary may be less important to one person because fulfillment is in place in spades and they have a partner that can help them financially, okay? For another, how much they get paid is perfect and they'll do it even if it's not as fulfilling, or move on to the next thing, or get their fulfillment outside of work, okay? So just remember that it's not just about everybody in black and white, like, okay, compensation, it has to be this amount that I should be getting paid, you know, for my job. It's about how you define it. And the bottom line here is you being a choice like we talked about before. Caroline, does that make sense? Anything else to explain there, you think?
No, I think great job explaining that.
Okay.
That fulfillment is so core to everything, yeah.
Yeah, well, and thanks for saying that, because that's exactly why we, you know, talked about that earlier. Down here at the bottom right, everybody, that's the one that we recommend you start on first, and then the other ones. Not because the other ones are not important or less so, it all depends on you, but because that fulfillment piece can really help you define the direction it might fit, okay? So why do we get into the wrong fit, I should say. I like to picture square peg round hole. Lots of different reasons. We'll just go through this slide quickly. You might be good at your job, but it's no longer rewarding. I've had clients tell me, well, my friend said I should be a data analyst, so I went into it and I was good at it, but he didn't like it anymore. I had another client say, well, all of my family, they're doctors, lawyers, et cetera. She was a lawyer. She was tired of it. Some people will say, well, they offered the job and it was there, so I took it. I had another client tell us, talk about the golden handcuffs. She worked at a pharmaceutical sales, she was a sales rep. She said, I felt like every time the natives were restless, like we were all unhappy with our jobs, in some way, shape, or form, they would throw a new car at us or a new phone or something. They kind of could tell when we were unhappy. And people would stay put because of that. And kind of the last reason here that sometimes people will get stuck in the wrong fit is they'll take a career assessment and say, you should go do this. Career assessments are fantastic. We highly recommend them. They only give you one piece to the puzzle normally. It might be about fulfillment. It might be about talents and skills, but they're not going to talk about compensation necessarily, okay? So this is why sometimes clients will come to us and be like, well, I took this test, but none of the list or the options on the list were ones that I wanted to pursue, okay? So you need to think about, everyone. Another kind of thing to determine the right fit is, why are you in your current job, and are you in it for the right reasons? You may have gotten started in it for the right reasons, but it's no longer a fit for you and you need to make a change. It's something to consider, okay? So again, you want to review the ideal career model. I'll just kind of show this to you just for a second here. So fulfillment we've discussed. Enjoyment, everyone, is the stuff that's like the icing on the cake. Using me as an example, career coaching and coaching people, counseling people, that's the core of what I want to do all day, every day. But I also get to write and do marketing. I enjoy that. It's a nice kind of addition or add-on to what I do. It makes my job even more of a fit for me. Does it use your natural talents and skills? Does it leverage your education? And do you want it to, okay? Does it leverage your past experience? Are you using that as well? And work environment and personality type go hand in hand here, everybody. Does the job and the role and the work environment fit with your personality type? Gosh, how many times have we heard that people lead people, not organizations, right? The culture is not a fit for us, and we are not enjoying working with people who are around. It is not going to work, no matter which way you slice it. And then compensation is critical as well, okay?
Yeah,
Hallie, any additional thoughts? Yeah.
I was just going to mention that I recently worked with a client very similar, almost in all of the blocks addressed in a particular position, you all, but the work environment was just not a fit. So there were so many things about that opportunity, the job, the current position that made sense, you know, leverage the education, the experience that she had in the past, complementary, enjoyed the work itself. But, you know, sometimes a work environment can make a tremendous difference. And if it's completely out of balance from the other things represented here, then in one block can make the difference in needing to change to a different work environment where you're using the same skills and it's leveraging your education and background. You know, making that change just to satisfy that cultural fit and environmental fit can be unnecessary.
Absolutely. And when it is a cultural fit, sometimes everyone, and that's it. Everything else, like when you write your list and go through this and you're like, well, it's really just a work environment, that's great news in some ways because that means you're in the right job, so to speak. You just maybe need to be in a different organization.
Easier transition, perhaps.
Easier. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good. Okay, so let's start to get close to the end here and start to wrap up, and we'll do some questions. So just as a quick review, we all want to be like this guy, like woohoo, right, in the sunset, okay? What we talked about today is why the right fit is important, the 8 red flags for the wrong fit, how to define fulfillment in the ideal career model. Feel free to come back to the slides and take a look at that. Print it out and use it as your litmus test, okay? My company, we do offer a lot of ways to help you find your career direction, navigate your transition, and help you with work performance and job search as well. On our site, we have a lot of low-cost products. Feel free to take a look at that. The link is there on the slide here. We are going to do a door prize today, so give away one of our career transition books to one of the participants. And I do offer a complimentary consultation. It's directly with me to get ideas on what to do next about your career, everybody, and also learn more about our services. So feel free to sign up for that. It's at the bottom there, okay? All right, so shift gears for me, and I want you all to start thinking about 2 action steps that you want to take. Actually, let's just pick one. Let's do one for the next week that you will take in order to make things different than they are today for you. So what will be different tomorrow as a result of today? What is one action step that you will take? Feel free to share that in the chat box with us as you're thinking about it. It could be, I'm going to review the model. I'm going to, you know, make my list of things I like and dislike. Talk to a friend about that list. Get their input and feedback on it. That's a possibility too, okay? And as you all are thinking about that and considering any questions you want to ask, feel free to enter those into the chat box. I want to leave you with, yes, my favorite quote here. If you are not in the right fit, or even if you are, everyone, and need to just make some adjustments, okay, take the steps to make them happen. Because remember that without risk, there is going to be no reward. So even if they're big steps you need to take, just break them down into baby steps. Do it slowly but surely over time, okay? So again, thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and open it up to questions or comments, Caroline.
Okay, let me jump back because after we solicited the fulfillment ideas earlier, Hallie, I did have a statement which I feel like is very valuable and wanted to mention. This person says, in my job, I feel great fulfillment when they win the projects that have been bidded on because that leads to job creation and job opportunities for other people. So in that way, this person feels that they are, and they certainly are, contributing to society and others' well-being.
Oh, I love that. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That's great.
Yes, yes. I really feel like, you know, that, I think a lot of times, too, we think about the helping others and how, and you went into this, Hallie, but, you know, if you have to be a doctor, a hands-on caregiver, or someone working in, you know, a nonprofit to absolutely impact others, and the answer is certainly no. That, you know, just as illustrated here, the chance to get people employed in a position that they enjoy and expand your workforce and contribute to them in all sorts of ways, that is certainly, you're certainly doing good and benefiting people, and that may be in a very traditional corporate environment for sure.
Absolutely, yes, good point. point. Thanks for sharing that.
I do have a question that's come up. After defining your personal fulfillment, how would a job seeker assess potential fit with companies? How do they do that when they're considering employment with these different organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that we have people do this, and I'll just throw out a couple of ideas so you can think about it. We have our clients identify their personal values first, because usually those are going to be the true ones closer to their heart than, oh, I'm going to pick from this list of career values like success and accomplishment, which may be values, but it doesn't always get to the deep, heart of things. Then we have them decide from that list of personal values, okay, what are career? And the way they start to think about that is, okay, what are the values that, gosh, I want to have honored pretty much all day, every day. Like, I won't just be satisfied having them honored in my personal life, okay? And so that's how you can start to determine the ones that you want to have, in your career. And then when you're looking at companies and organizations, it can get a little bit tricky sometimes, right? Because when you're interviewing, for example, they're putting their best foot forward, and sometimes it's hard to know exactly, truly how it really is. But those are kinds of things you can read about on Glassdoor.com, what are the reviews of companies. Try to talk with people at those organizations. Sometimes I'll have people look at, like for Atlanta specifically or whatever, wherever your location is. Usually the newspapers there do like a survey of the top 100 employers in the area. And sometimes you can find, the good companies culture-wise that way. But then when you're on the actual interview, ask them direct questions. What are your corporate values and how do you live by them? So ask those things that will help you understand what the culture is like too.
Absolutely. And I think, leveraging the Georgia Tech alumni community can be so important. When you have, and obviously people and trust independent of that as well, but people that you have a commonality with, they sort of understand your background, you can express to them what your interests are, and having an informational interview with someone who has worked in the past at a company you're interested in or you may be interested in, or is a current employee, and kind of figuring out, hey, does this, in just the answer of my questions on what your day is like, how invested is your organization into the community, whatever is important to you, and figuring those things out can be done with an informational interview through the alumni population.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, that's a great idea too, because you also, everyone, want to evaluate what the role is like. So not just the company, but like, yeah, what is it, the daily life in, as a data analyst or whatever it is that will help tell you whether it's going to be fulfilling for you. Absolutely.
So, Hallie, one other thing I have here is this person is going to, in their action statement for the week or action step, is going to make a list of things that they both like and dislike about their job. So kind of seeing if they would decide to leave, what would they be giving up? What would be the potential reward, and really making that honest assessment of what things currently are like with the current position.
Oh, beautiful. Love that. That's perfect. Great. Yep. And then, by the way, you can take those and conduct informational interviews to then say, okay, can I get these other things if I make a change or not? I'll give you that reality check there. That's great.
Better understanding of what is going to be available at different organizations or within a different role. Absolutely.
Good.
And that's all we have today. Yeah, I think we've answered and addressed everything. And appreciate you, Hallie, today leading us. And for those of you who are on the line as participants, we will get that recording and slides out to you. And I thank you for joining us on this Friday. And we'll look forward to having you participate in future programs, okay?
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thanks, Caroline. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.